Hey guys, welcome. Fedora Friday number 22. Fedora Friday number 22. Hopefully you guys are having a great week. I'm having a pretty good week myself. Anxious to get my next trip underway. Going to Puerto Rico with my brother. Should be a lot of fun. Can't wait to do that. It's been so long since I've been on the island, so it's going to be nice, a nice little homecoming, so to speak. So yeah. Hopefully you guys are also having a great week. If you're traveling, that's great. If you're just staying at home, also great. Got my man Nathan. What's going on, Nathan? Good afternoon. Yeah, wow. It's like every time these things come up, these live shows, I just like there's a little bit of that anxiety, like preparation and all that. But it's always great to kind of get it going. I got my man Paul here. Paul, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, you look good.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, having a great week. I see the black hat that you had introduced before on your head. Looks good.
Oh, it's nice and comfortable. I'm trying to wear it in, and you know what it's like. It's when you've got a stiff hat, it takes a little while to make it look lived in, as it were. But yeah, no, it's good, thank you. Yeah,
I love it. Love it.
What have you got on there? You got very wide ribbon on there, 50mm ribbon, I reckon.
Yeah, this is, I don't know the exact specs, but it definitely is a wide ribbon. This is my Kavanaugh Blue Onyx. I wore this during the Fedora Friday I did with Brad on Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. I just felt it was appropriate for the film that we're going to discuss today. But yeah.
Oh, of course, it's Borsalino, isn't it?
Hello, yes. Ian. Yeah, Ian, how you doing, my friend? Welcome. Always good to see our faithful moderators in the chat room. Paul, anything new going on? I'm sure there is, but
well, I'm very, very blessed. I've got a few builds going on at the moment that are interesting. I've got, funny enough, I've got some more felts in from Vepsa, and I got this one in, which is it's 120 weight, but it's very, very pliable, as you can see, and soft.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, because it's a Borsalino day, I thought, well, I'll bring this on as I happen to have it to hand, and just share with you that the felts that Borsalino come up with are absolutely fabulous. Now, I don't know, I think they make them themselves still, but I'm not absolutely certain. But there's a certain thing about the Borsalino felts which, once you've had one and you've tried, hi Nathan, you never go back.
Yeah, Borsalino.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing well. I like the flat cap, Nathan.
Yeah, we're trying it out.
Hey, I love it. It's a good look.
Good look. Yeah.
We were just talking about Borsalino. I mean, Borsalino is one of those brands, that obviously is very storied. And it's one of those things that one of my early fedoras, right after I kind of got into the hobby, was a Borsalino velour that I got. I don't know how I was able to get such a great price, but I immediately felt how pliable the felt was, right? And you guys already know that I'm not somebody that ever steams their hats. So it was very nice and like a pleasant surprise. In many ways, I was spoiled by the fact that you could dry bash a lot of Borsalinos. Now, again, it's not every single Borsalino because they do have kind of variations. But for the one that I have, and I feel like it is a common, they're lauded commonly for their pliability. And mine was just so nice to be able to just say, hey, I want this shape. Just put the hand over it, bash it into shape, and it stays that way, more or less.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have a Borsalino. I've got Paul's got a Lock & Co. He's going to be sending me shortly. But yeah, I think in my own personal collection, I'm kind of to that point. It's like I don't have a Lock & Co. Let me try to pick one of those up. I don't have a Borsalino. Let me try to get one of those. I don't have a Celentino. Let me try one. So I'm kind of to that point in my collection because right now I have kind of the handful of hats that I wear daily and rotate pretty often. Now it's like let me get something I don't have. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at with my hat journey, I should say.
Yeah,
I must admit, I try and imitate. Oh, this is terrible, wouldn't it? Really, because I don't think you can imitate a Borsalino. But I've got this one, for instance, at the moment where I'm just making this is 100% beaver fur felt for a young lady, and you know, it is the very soft 80 gram weight beaver fur felt, and you know, it's my sort of homage to what they do at Borsalino, but it's so soft and just
I love that color.
Yeah, it's a teal color. It's I've got a hat in it, and it's just different, isn't it? It's just a nice vivid color. And in fact, let's just she wants it trimmed in the gold, so you've got blue and gold.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, that really pops. And we got
I mean that's really going to be out there, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, I love it. I can't wait to see it. Hopefully you have some photos you can share once it's done up. And you know, and we got Jedi here saying he's heading to Seattle in a week or so. Looking forward to going to a real hat shop that has some Borsalinos I can try on. I'm concerned about sizing. Yeah, sizing is always a tricky, you know, obviously because hat shops aren't as plentiful as they used to be. Unless you're in London, where there seems to be a lot more. But it really is great to be able to try on, because what we know is that manufacturers will you know, have the same size, but they don't fit the same way. Obviously, the felt thickness might have a factor to do with that. And we know that a lot of hats shrink over time. So it's always nice to be able to actually go to the hat shop or to your hatter. If you're lucky enough to have Paul nearby or Robert nearby, to go to your hatter and just have, you know, try on a set of hats, and that way you can see how it looks and see how it feels on your head, because that's the most important part, is the fit and how it makes you feel once you wear the hat.
Yeah, that's almost a gamble for sure. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that it's as a rule of thumb with Borsalino, you probably find that you'll have to go up one size. But if you just bear that in mind, then it's a useful tip. But if you're trying them on, it's just finding one that fits.
I was
gonna say that's a gamble, and like having that little insight of like, hey, that brand, you know, half size up, or that brand half size down. So, you know, if you're in the circles, you know, you'll get that information. Other than that, it's just kind of trial and error. And with the world of online ordering, you know, sometimes you have to order a couple of sizes, and you know, hopefully you get a free return policy and get the one that you like and fits best, and you know, send the other one back.
Correct. It's like buying shoes online, right? Or a jacket, or anything like that. You know, obviously e-commerce is here to stay, but it's one of those things where you really want a situation where you can try a few sizes, because again, there are benefits to going a little bit oversized, right? I think Kevin's mentioned that in some of his videos, right? One is your size of, you know, how much hair, if you're planning to grow out your hair. Another thing is if you like a hat tilt, it helps to have a little bit more size to be able to do a proper hat tilt. There's obviously a lot of benefits to going a little bit oversized, but at some point, right, like too much is too much. So it's one of those things that's nice to be able to go out there, maybe get in front of a mirror and experiment a little bit and see how it looks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think in anybody's hat, or my personal hat journey, you that's one of the big things, is like sizing. How should it fit? How should it feel?
Yeah.
And you know, it took me a few hats to kind of get down the road to say, okay, this is the one I'm comfortable with. And you can, you know, having it just a little bit bigger, and you can put, you know, your sizing materials and different methods to kind of get it to fit. And then you can actually get a pretty custom fit on a lot of hats, depending on the hat and the felt and stiffness and all that. But but I think, you know, if you get a hat, if you get your first hat and you knocked it out of the park on that first hat, that's rare. Sometimes it takes a little bit to kind of get that exact fitting that you like, that you're comfortable with.
Correct.
It's what you were saying when we last spoke, Nathan, about the bluey gray hat that you had from me, and how the thickness of that felt combined with the type of leather sweatband, it just feels that, I mean, that's probably about the closest to a Borsalino that you'll have without having a Borsalino, because it is that soft and that sort of comfortable, and you don't really feel as though you've got a hat on your head, which is lovely as well.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and that fits so well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna guys, I just want to jump on and say hello. I've been traveling, I've been out of town, and I wanted to see your mugs on the screen here. I will share a brief hat story from this week. I shared it with Paul earlier this morning, but
Yeah.
so Luke, last time we spoke, I think it was Friday, I think. But I had my red Pizza Hut hat on. It was a
Yeah.
Saratelli hat, cattle increase, 4-inch brim. I had it cut down because when I bought it, it was a little bit too big, so I had it cut down to a 4-inch. And I'd had some Pizza Hut hat band, and I did some things to it to really spice it up. And that was my hat that I wore this week in the Dominican Republic when we competed in the Global Championship. And the hat was an absolute star of the show. Everybody loved the hat, and a lot of people were, how do I get it? They wanted one, and can I try it on? And just this whole thing. And a gentleman from one of the other countries really, really liked it, and he wanted to know where he could get one, and I told him, I said, well, I tell you what, if you win, I'll give you the hat. And my wife thought I was crazy. She's like, yeah, well, you're full of it,
Yeah.
And I shook his hand. We agreed on it. Well, by God, Wednesday night they announced the winner, and he was one of the winners of the competition. So my wife was like, "You got to go get your hat," So after all the celebratory, things went on, I walked up to him and I said, "Listen, I'm not a liar. So congratulations." And I put the hat on his head, and he was so ecstatic to have this hat. And I knew he had told his whole team about it because they couldn't believe that it was actually true.
Right.
And now he's got a nice red Pizza themed hat. And I went home hatless that night. But I tell you, giving is so much better than receiving.
Yeah.
And he will cherish that. He will certainly appreciate it. So I was so glad to kind of add to his night, to his team's victory. But that was my hat story of the week. And guys, I look forward to the rest of the conversation, as well as Fedora Friday. And I think what's the topic? I can't remember. Is there a topic next week, or are you out of town, Luke?
Next week there is a topic. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It's on the calendar.
I can't remember.
But yeah, there will be one more week of Hat Tuesday and Fedora Friday before I break for a week. Okay,
well, safe travels if I don't talk to you before then. But Paul, good to see you as well. And Luke, we'll have some kind of announcement, I hope, in the next I don't know if it'll be by the end of this month, but that's coming soon for our collaboration. And yes, thank you guys. Good to see you, and have a good weekend.
Likewise, Nathan. Thank you for stopping by, and you have a great day.
All right.
Oh, Nathan Tuck, guys. Always fun to see Nathan on screen. That's a great story, and it actually reminds me about the giving, right? So we have an update on the the hat giveaway, the Fedora giveaway. I did select, Roger had not contacted me back. I selected the next person, who was William. Now, William was close to fitting the hat. So he passed on the hat. And then I basically remembered that I have a buddy that has a head size that was similar, was asking about hats. And I talked to William, and I said, if you want, I can donate it on your behalf to my buddy who's curious about fedoras. He thought it was a great idea. So on Tuesday, I'm going to go present this to my friend Heath, and hopefully it'll be his first fedora and maybe not his last. And this is what it's all about. It's about giving, because you never know, right? This hobby, like something like that, where Nathan's gesture, William's gesture, you never know what kind of ripple effect it'll have in terms of creating more people for this fun hat hobby, So, again, I think it's a great story, and hopefully, I'll keep you guys updated on that process. Yeah. So, I mean, Borsalino, wow. First of all, I saw this movie for the first time 2 years ago. Paul, I have no idea if you've seen this film, I don't know if we've talked about it. I know we've talked about Borsalino, but we might have talked about the movie itself.
I think probably years ago, and I wouldn't. Perhaps if you do what you normally do with some of your screenshots, it might bring back some memories. But
yeah,
I just thought, I saw that name and I thought, Borsalino, I've got to sort of have a chat about. Oh my goodness, look at those! Eh? Oh,
this
honestly.
movie is full of like hats. Not just fedoras. You got boaters. You got flat caps. You have Panama hats. It is a tremendous tour de force in terms of hats, right? And I know it's been criticized. I mean, and probably fairly so, right? In terms of, even though it's supposed to be taking place in the 30s, a lot of folks criticize that the crowns are not nearly high enough. I didn't see that, like, meaning that wasn't one of my hangups with the movie. I thought that the script was a little bit more like Sylvester Stallone-ish, meaning those films that are a little bit more fan service, and they're really vehicles for the stars to kind of show their tough guyness, right? So it's not really one of those movies that you're gonna, like a lot of movies I recommend, especially Stallone movies. They're not movies that you're like, okay, this is a legitimately great film. But if you're a hat person, wow, is it like ever full of hats, and not just the hats, but the style that goes along with it is tremendous. And I mean, look at this photo. I mean, how can you not like admire the style?
No, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? And look how the front of the brim there just oozes off the front of the hat. And with the Borsalino, you just take it off and you just whip it round, and it just feels amazing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And just FYI, I mean, again, I was not familiar with these two actors prior to seeing this film, but apparently these are two well-known actors. I have heard of Alain Delon. Hopefully that I pronounced that correct. But this was kind of like a movie produced by Alain. Hopefully it could be Alain, but I'm just going to say Alain. And it was really like, it was his vehicle to star in a movie with Jean-Paul Belmondo. And so essentially these two guys were already established stars and were looking to collaborate on something. And now the movie is based on a real life story of two gangsters, right? The gangsters were known as Paul Carboni and Francois Spiritu, who collaborated with Nazi Germany during the occupation of France during World War II. So it was based on, real life characters. Obviously, they didn't really, stay true to the story. They took a lot of liberties. But it was something that Alain read he read somewhere, said, hey, this should be a movie, and then essentially handpicked Jean-Paul Belmondo to co-star with him. Now, there was a lot of tension from what I've read. There was a lot of tension, maybe not necessarily during the making of the movie, right? So there were two big stars jockeying for position, jockeying for screen time. And then afterwards, I think in the marketing of the movie, that's when the friendship essentially fell apart. And it happens sometimes. And I don't think they've ever worked again since that time. But this movie was a huge hit. Not as much in the US, but internationally outside of the US, it was a huge hit, certainly in Europe. And really, like, I got to tell you, if you are a fan of Western movies, this is probably a gangster version of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, right? Everybody kind of knows, well, maybe a lot of folks know the famous 1969 movie starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford. This very much feels like a 30s era gangster flick mirroring the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid movie, kind of like that. Those two guys that are kind of partners, they have different strengths and they partner together. And it's very cheesy in many ways, but there's such fedora goodness in this movie that you kind of excuse it. But yeah, I'll go through some of the photos here to kind of see. Obviously, these two appear on screen for the majority of the movie. And I'm sure that was probably worked out between the actors in terms of screen time. But you can see here, there is some high crown fedora, at least there's high crown to me in this movie. And you can see here, Alain is very much the kind of the strategist, right? He's kind of the suave, debonair, maybe James Bond type of personality. And, Belmondo's character, Capella, right? So Alain played Siffredi, Belmondo played Capella. He's more like the tough guy enforcer of the duo. And obviously they kind of meet, they have a fight, pretty cheesy fight. They're kind of like going tit for tat. But again, I'm pretty sure that was worked out between the two big movie stars, that they had to kind of, nobody could get the best out of the other one. But it happens where it's like, one, they respect each other and agree to go into business with each other and essentially head in and start making their inroads into the organized crime arena in Marseille, France. And I have had the fortune of visiting Marseille. I know it was talked about as a very rough neighborhood when I visited Marseille, but there was a lot of beauty, and I saw some of what they consider the slums. It reminded me of a lot of the favelas that you would see in Brazil, and maybe some of the similar areas that you might see in Puerto Rico. So it goes to show you, sometimes these slums, they can be very uniform no matter where you go. But yeah, had a great time in France. But it was interesting to see, besides Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that there was some kind of ties and analogies that I could make to The Godfather and even Scarface, both the original and the remake by Al Pacino, to kind of see the old guard versus the new guard. Because these two guys, they're kind of up and coming. And there's two established crime bosses in the movie, and they are essentially taking over. And it kind of shows you the kind of similar to Scarface, the dangers of too much ambition, right? Unchecked ambition. And you see the fedora mostly on Siffredi, right? Elaine's character, the enforcer. You see some fedora action for Capella. But it's mostly flat caps, and I think that fits so nicely in terms of like the character archetype. And at some point, you start seeing them go without hats. If you watch Fedora Fridays, here you've noticed that many movies, one of the common things is, as folks are ascending, right? Let's say it's a crime movie and they're ascending up the ladder, in the corporate crime ladder, so to speak. You'll see them don these hats, right? It's the idea of bringing out an image of success and ambition before one achieves it. But once they become established, you start seeing them go without the hats towards the end of the movie. It's a pretty interesting transition.
What's interesting on that fedora that the gentleman on the left is wearing is that it's very much the style of Herbert Johnson. And in fact, as you notice, it's very angular, very flat on the top. So the actual block that it's made is a bit different to so the regular block, if you like, is very domed, like head, but then the block there would be very out and down, which I've got in my cupboard to be able to show you. It's just interesting that you don't see too many of that shape on the continent. So in saying that, I haven't necessarily been looking, but that really does look quite special.
Yeah, and I have no idea if Borsalino supplied the hats for this movie, but I do know that the movie was deliberately named Borsalino because, from what we know historically, a lot of hat manufacturers were on the downslope during the 1970s, the 60s, and the 70s, right? But Borsalino was still, right? I think Borsalino benefited from a lot of the disruption that happened in the hat industry. So Borsalino was very much still rising up during the 60s and 70s, when a lot of other manufacturers, particularly in the US, were on the downslope. So the movie really did try to capitalize on the fame of the hat brand. Now, again, whether there were formal ties to the hat brand, meaning they were a sponsor or they supplied hats in any way, I don't know that for sure. But it's interesting to see a movie named after a hat brand. Isn't that like, you would think that there might be a Lock & Co movie, right? Because that's just another brand out there.
Yeah, I think Borsalino is a place as well, isn't it? And so I guess maybe I'll have to have a look at the film again, but maybe it was located in that area as well.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I did not know that, but that's interesting. I mean, it's one of those things where again, I don't know the complete story. This is a movie I saw a couple years ago, but immediately as a very new hat fan, I just saw this and I couldn't get enough of this. I think a lot of the passion and that I have for this hobby probably is attributable to movies like this, which are like, again, a tour de force. I found out about this movie on the Fedora Lounge because it was widely lauded and again also criticized. One for having kind of a shaky script, but mostly because a lot of folks that are into accuracy will say that they're not period appropriate hats. I never really cared about the accuracy in a lot of movies. I just see good hat goodness in all of this.
If you've noticed on some of the Borsalino hats, a lot of them, it says Alessandria. So Alessandria is the place where they're made, and Borsalino is I think a town within that city, if for want of a better description, gotcha. Or an area at least in that vicinity in Italy. So yeah.
All right. Well, good to know. I mean, again, it's one of those things where I'm sure that they're like dedicated researchers to something, like essentially somebody equivalent to Brad that probably has already those details. But yeah, it's one of those things where and there's a sequel, by the way, just in case if you've seen this but you have not seen the sequel. There is a sequel. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it doesn't have Belmondo in it because obviously they refused to work with each other again. But Alain Delon does show up for the sequel, and I watched it. I thought it was pretty entertaining. It kind of continues the story of Siffredi. So it's one of those things where if you're a fan of the original, just know that you do have a sequel. And you can see here, right? You can see here Alain without a hat. Right? He has the style at this point. Already feels like he doesn't need to wear a hat. And then you have Capella here with what looks like a Panama hat. I have seen him with the Panama, and this one looks like a Panama as well. Or at least some kind of straw. Again, the style for me does it for me. Like besides the hat, just the general style, obviously the Tommy gun, very iconic for the gangster films, the ones that take place in the 30s. But yeah, I'll just scroll through some of these photos. Paul, if you notice anything you want to point out, then then you can just tell me to put on the brakes.
Yeah, it's difficult to see that hat, that white one. I mean, it could be a felt with an overwelt.
Yeah,
it's quite difficult to see, isn't it?
Yeah, so, yeah. I know the character does wear a Panama in the movie, but I couldn't tell you with this one particularly a Panama.
No.
Or some kind of straw.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of see that what could be a weave, but
yeah,
it is difficult to tell.
Mm.
And then we'll show some more photos. You can see here, right? That high crown on Siffredi's character with the flat cap juxtaposed with the flat cap of Capella. Again, they are. I think these two on screen, besides the fact that the script could be a little weak, I think they do have kind of you can tell why they're stars, right? They have that magnetic personality. So I thought it was a good, one of these good movies where you have these two guys. Again, something that Stallone would do, right? Everybody remembers Tango and Cash when Stallone paired up with Kurt Russell. There's several movies, and Stallone seems to really be adept at doing that. Ian says Capella dies at the end of the first film. Yes, correct. Yeah, he does die. Yeah, you're right. So that would be another good reason for him not appearing in the sequel. Thanks for mentioning that, Ian. But I mean, modern days when I'm used to the Fast and Furious, characters die and then come back mysteriously all the time, and I don't know if they wrote that in prior, if that was Alain's way of, taking advantage of Belmondo's fame for the first movie and then just writing him off. And maybe that was part of also like what Belmondo had a problem with. I know a lot of actors have issues where they die in a certain movie.
Looking at that hat, Luke, the hat there, I think it's got quite a high crown. I think that on an open crown, that's probably a 6.5 inch block rather than a 5.5 inch block, which is very much reminiscent of the Hufford and Hornscoff hats that are made these
Correct.
days. So yeah, and I guess to a degree the Herbert Johnson, and it is very much the flat block and the and it just looks peachy, as they say, you know,
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah, and I think the perfect description of Alain in this movie and throughout his movies, right? He's done many movies, is like he has this effortless cool, right? He just appears cool in every single scene and every single shot. And I'm sure part of that was deliberate, right, in terms of wardrobe. But this perception of Alain that goes beyond, right? It's like one of those like James Bondish, right? It's like France's version of James Bond would be Alain Delon. He just has this like, he can't look bad. I haven't seen any shot here where he looks bad. Here you go, another shot, some more flat caps. I think this is Alain, and I'm not sure who's wearing the flat cap here. I think this is one of the bosses in the movie. But again, just to show you some of the fashion here, and again, the transition that these characters make throughout the movie, where they start donning the hats, right? They're on the rise. They're criminals on the rise. And then once they get into power, where they take out all the competition, you don't see them with hats anymore. So this is probably a portion here with Siffredi's already at peak power. Here's another shot, a different shot where they're both wearing flat caps. Again, they don't. None of these shots look bad. And I mentioned that about Alain, but Belmondo looks pretty spiffy in every single shot as well. So again, I'm sure that was no accident. Belmondo kind of reminds me a little bit of Steve McQueen, to be honest. Another shot here. You can see here that this might be later on in the movie, right? Now, Capella's still wearing his hat. It's a very stylish hat and trench coat combination here. But you can see the Hugh Hefner type look on Siffredi, right? So again, kind of showing that as he's rising in power, he's now considers himself kind of like high society. This is, I think, that same, if that's the same to Panama, but a different straw on Capella here. And then you can see the, I believe this is that original high crown fedora that we saw just the other shot. Again, I don't know if all these shots were from the movie itself. They could have been just photo shoots. Remember, these are two big stars here when this movie was made in 1970. So I'm sure they did like these glamour shots, but they look good. I just love the style. Again, another shot here. I like that a little bit of the hat tilt on Siffredi here, and then again more flat caps for Capella. Again, they both look impeccably dressed. It's just they're different characters, and they kind of fit. Their style kind of fits, right? With Capella being the enforcer, and Siffredi being kind of like the mastermind, right? The charmer. This one I thought was a great shot. I don't remember if this is from the film, but this is kind of like more of a full body shot of Siffredi, and just impeccable. Like I said, right out of a James Bond film could be.
Yeah, or Casablanca, or even David Bowie.
Correct.
He had some fedoras that were slightly more accentuated, and that's reminiscent of some of the poses that he had with a cigarette. I mean, it's just a fantastic composition. That's the sort of image that you know, if you're into hats and you're into fashion, you'd have on your wall. You know, it's just really, very, very nice. Lovely style.
Correct. Again, and Delon has this reputation. Again, I've not seen him. These gentlemen both passed away fairly recently. Delon passed away in 2024. And Belmondo passed away a few years before that in 2021. So these gentlemen were both alive and well up until fairly recently. So it's interesting to see how their style might have evolved over the years. But it's really cool to kind of see them together on screen in this movie. You have here kind of another more up close shot of Siffredi. Again, every angle I see this guy looks good. You know, and he dyed his hair. That was another thing. I don't think he was a. I think he might be a blonde gentleman. But for the movie, in order to create a contrast, right, for Siffredi with Capella's character, Alain Delon deliberately dyed his hair black to be able to kind of distinguish himself on screen, right? Because these two guys are jockeying for screen time. Delon's like, I want to make sure I stand out. I love the pinstripe suit here. Again, this is very classic 30s gangster. Again, the crown might not be as high as we would expect on a 1930s gangster outfit, but it still looks sharp, you know? Another angle. This is that more higher crown with that big ribbon. Again, I just love all these photos. And watching this movie, that there's rarely a scene that you can get through that doesn't have some sort of hat in it. So it's just, like I said, a tour de force. This is an early on point in the film. You can see this nice brown fedora here on Siffredi. He had just gotten out of jail and essentially is looking for his ex-girlfriend. And that's kind of how he ends up meeting up with, you know, with Capella. It's another pinstripe suit here. Again, these are mainly shots of Siffredi for now, and then we'll get into some solo shots of Capella. This is a nice high crown fedora here. I think this is the same one we saw earlier on. I think it goes really well. You know, it's one of those things where Delon doesn't seem like a very large gentleman, and I think we've talked about that before when we've done a Fedora Friday on the Untouchables. There was the character, the accountant, right, who was a very slight man, but he had that high crown fedora, very similar to this, and it still looked good. And I think Delon manages to pull it off pretty well in Borsalino. Again, some more shots. This is a very nice one. I like this gray one as well. This one kind of looks like it has some brim trim on it, which you guys already know I'm a big fan of.
The brim trim, it really gives it a bit of definition because the trim sort of brings in the felt, and without putting stiffener on the brim, it gives it more rigidity, which enables you to get that sort of shape on there. So that's a nice touch. I mean, you know, the school's out as to what's the right thing, whether you put brim trim on or whether you leave it open. But I must admit, I'm a fan of the brim trim. I think it really does add something to hats.
Correct. And then obviously there's the choice of whether you want the trim, the brim trim to match the felt color, or if you want a contrasting colors. I like both, to be honest. I think depending on the hat, they both can be, you know, it all kind of depends on what you want, what kind of look you want to achieve. But I think it's kind of another, for a hatter, another tool in a tool belt to be able to make that decision or help the customer in making that decision as to whether they want that brim trim or not. And if they do, whether they want it to match the felt or not. Paul, do you get more requests for alternate color brim trim or versus matching?
Well, it's interesting. Quite a bit of the time lately, I've got requests for matching trim colors. Like I'll just grab a hat here, and so this one has got a matching brim trim color and a darker crown color. And you know, that's lovely. And of course, what's happening recently is that customers are asking me not to fix the brim ribbon on, so they can take it off and put another color on, and they can either match this or they can actually dress it up. You know, I've had a couple of chats today with different people about different hats, and you know, and that's come up. And on the other side of the coin, you've got something like this, which is you know, where you've got a yellowy goldy color here. Obviously the green felt, and then the burgundy here. Now, you know, I just love that. I just think it looks absolutely you know, gorgeous. But again, it's an acquired taste because it's, you know, quite a high brim and everything. But crown, sorry,
But you bring up a great point in that if you have a brim trim that is right, because for me, I always gravitate towards brim trim matching the ribbon. But if you choose it to match the felt or have maybe a contrasting color, you do have more options in terms of versatility of changing that ribbon and not necessarily clashing. Now, I haven't seen alternate colors often, but I'm sure that could work depending on how one chooses. And it could be a good way to differentiate your fedora, right? To choose a felt color, a different brim trim, as well as a different ribbon. And who knows? I mean, we've seen how well the double-decker ribbon works. I wouldn't doubt that somebody, if they chose the right colors, they could have that and have it work for them, and you would stand out.
Yeah, I think more and more people are looking at the individuality, and I think in terms of flexibility, you're right, Jedi. It's looking at swapping out the ribbons is a great way of customizing. I haven't got it here, but I've had conversations with two people today about the festival type hats and how they want the brim curl, the pencil curl, left the same color as the felt and not put a trim on it. But then they want to be able to, on the one hand, have a very formal, grosgrain with ribbon tied into a bow, but on the other hand, they want to be able to take that off and put some denim on there, or put some leather trim on there or whatever, so that they can wear it with a suit, or they can wear it with denim or a leather jacket. And I'm all for that, because it gives you flexibility and fun. Let's be honest, if you can go out and you can, as a consumer, you can go out and buy these bits and pieces, and play around with it. That gives another dimension, I think, to hats. I think that's where we're going, is more about flexibility, because let's be fair, hats are quite new hats are quite an expensive investment. So you might as well get, your bang for your buck, as we say over here, and get the value out of the hat.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where, for if you are just strictly a vintage hat collector, you're going to find yourself kind of limited in terms of what you have available to you, unless you are out there trying to search for maybe custom hats that have been around for a little bit, right? So it can happen, but for the most part, if you're going to collect vintage hats, you're going to see your typical blacks, your grays, your browns. Occasionally you'll get greens, but if you want some more of those out there colors, right? I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. I want to say it's BJH. I probably butchered that, but I saw on one of the guys I follow on Instagram posted a tremendous hat he just completed for a customer that was purple and yellow. Yeah. And wow, I had to go and repost that and show that color combination, because it's one of those things. I'm like, I know that technically, the Los Angeles Lakers, the basketball team, their colors are purple and yellow or purple and gold. But when you see it on a hat, you're like, wow, that actually looks out there, but not so out there that it might make you feel too awkward, right? It's like one of those, maybe not as safe as wine or olive green, but I thought it looked pretty nice. So it goes to show you kind of like that scale of colors. And sometimes you can't picture it in your head until you see it. And that's why I love Instagram. And this is like one of the love interests, just to show you that there are a lot of female hats in here as well. I don't have a whole lot of slides dedicated to them, but they are, a lot of the females in this movie are also wearing hats as well. And some of them are a little bit more out there, right? Which I guess for the female hats, they kind of have, in many ways, a little bit more societal permission, right? To be a little bit more glittery, a little bit more showy, right? A little more decorative. But it doesn't mean that it's strictly reserved for the ladies. But yeah, this is Lola, and she starts off as an ex-girlfriend of Siffredi, and then ends up seeing Capella. Essentially, this is how they end up meeting, like I mentioned before. So I just thought it was pretty. Some of the hats here go on from the range of more conservative to a lot more showy, like this one. And here's a Capella shot with a hat tilt fedora on. Again, you don't see him as often with a fedora in the movie, but you do see it. And, he may not wear it quite as well as Alain, but again, that's no, that really is there's no harm in that, right? It's like, I don't think that many folks would look as good as Alain Delon in anything.
I think that tilt has been adopted by Johnny Depp these days, hasn't it? And he seems to wear that sort of tilt quite often. Yeah. And honestly, he's wearing he must have about 50 to 100 hats in his wardrobe that I would suspect a lot of those are Borsalino because of looking at the felts and the style and so on.
Yes.
And he loves the sort of casual floppy look that is almost to perfection, to be honest with you. It's been coiffured, to within an inch of its life,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Alessandria model, which is, besides being the town where Borsalino is tied to, but they have a model called the Alessandria, and I believe that Johnny Depp is one of the celebrities that have kind of like repopularized that Alessandria model. It's just impeccable, and you'll see a lot of folks on the Fedora Lounge and on Facebook rocking the Alessandria. It's a great one. I have not come across one in person yet, but from all the photos, man, if I get one at the right price, I'm definitely going to pick one up.
It's one of those hats that I've bought probably 5 or 6 of them and refurbished them, but as soon as you put them up for sale, they're gone. They are such sought after hats, especially in the bigger sizes for obvious reasons.
Yeah. And Jedi's saying that he's considering a yellow one on eBay. Yeah, that's a nice thing. If you get a good price, I'd say take a chance on it because you never know. It's one of those things where until you put it on your head, and we all know, there's certain days where you feel a little bit more confident than others. It's nice to be able to have a hat to kind of either go along with your heightened confidence or your, you know what I mean? And you're like, you know what, today I'm going to wear this hat. I do that sometimes with my snowflake hat, right? If I'm feeling extra confident, I'm feeling extra sure of myself, I will don the hat because it's a little bit more out there type of hat. And maybe that yellow one will be your high confidence hat.
I actually would say that yellow is a good one. I mean, I've got a yellowy beigey leather jacket, and I thought I had a yellow felt from Fepsa, and it was about 110, 120 gram weight, so quite a lightweight felt.
Yeah,
made it into a beautiful fedora with blue trimming both round the brim and round the crown. And before I knew where I was, somebody that I know who does a lot of work on stage and what have you, he took one look at it, fell in love with it, and he had to have it. So I gifted it to him. And but it's one of those hats that it's a bit Marmite. You either like it or you don't.
Yeah, correct. And again, that's the nice thing about having at least a decent size enough collection to be able to have those hats for different moods and different occasions. Jedi mentioned that it's an odd brim tilt, but the hat really isn't tilted. I think you're right. It might just be a function of the brim being tilted. I call it hat tilt to kind of because I'm not so sure. But I think you might be right that it's just the brim. Yeah, if I look at just the head positioning, then I think you're absolutely right. It looks the hat itself looks straight. It's the brim that's tilted. Thank you for correcting me. But you see more flat caps on Capella's character, but you do get some fedora action on him as well. And again, I'm sure it's one of those things where he had to write it in. I believe this is Safredi, but I could be wrong. I'm trying to look at the picture itself, but regardless of whether it's Safredi or one of the goons in the movie, and we have several goons in the movie. I don't even go on to name them. I just call them goons, and all of them have some kind of hat on. Most of them have, but not all of them, but most of them have some kind of hat on. I think this looks really sharp. It looks like a gray fedora with a kind of a navy blue suit. Those are two classic colors. I think they go very well together. They're more conservative colors. I talked about this before. If you're going to go and if you're not somebody that likes to wear a suit, you just like to have a suit for job interviews. And again, depending on your like for the color, but navy blue is one of those colors that if you have one suit, it's like very versatile. And then people say charcoal is another color, but navy blue, the navy blue suit is like, if you're going to have one, make it navy blue. And I think this is a shot that kind of proves how versatile it can be. If you want to wear different hats with your navy blue suit, it's going to look good. Here's kind of an up close shot of Siffredi. Sorry, Capella. Again, also wearing a fedora. This is kind of a black and white photo. I don't know if this is from the movie or just a glamour shot, but just to kind of give you a flavor. And then the next shot would be a more classic, right? He kind of reminds me of like a Gene Hackman. When I see a shot like this, Gene Hackman would have played, if there was a US-based version of this movie, I can picture Gene Hackman playing Capella. He has that very Gene Hackman kind of rugged enforcer type looks, and the flat cap just fits. Here's another shot. This is kind of the Capella's love interest. You can see here they're driving. This is from the movie. I don't know if this particular shot is from the movie or just like a behind the scenes, but I remember this scene where they're kind of driving through and she's holding her hat. This is kind of one of those typical big brim lady hats. I would call it a church hat, for lack of a better term, but she's kind of holding it on as the car's going so that it doesn't blow by. And she just looks very elegant. And again, Capella looking very Steve McQueen esque with his with his outfit. This is one of the goons. Now, again, this goon is consistently dressed in black. And again, I don't think it's a mistake. This is like one of the guys that gets his hands dirty, right? He's the guy that one of the enforcer types, and he wants to look menacing. And then with the dark complexion and with the all black outfit, he definitely looks the part. We've seen that as well for a lot of villains, right? When they dress in all black, they mean business. It's another shot of that same goon next to Siffredi. You can see that very high crown on him. At least it looks very high from this angle here.
It definitely is. Yeah.
You see the all black. Just menacing.
It really does give him height, because he looks quite a slight man. He doesn't look as though he's particularly well built, but the proportions of the hat have really enhanced him to make him look more impressive than he is.
Yeah,
it takes quite a lot of courage to wear a higher crown hat, but obviously in the film they're there to do it. But it looks really good.
Yeah, and I've heard that tactic used when for folks that are shorter, right? To have a higher crown to kind of give a little bit more of the illusion of more height, right? And I think it works. I think you're absolutely right. He looks like because I don't think Alain is a very tall man, so to speak. And this gentleman looks actually shorter than he is. But with the taller crown, it kind of gives him a little bit more kind of a height and presence. Definitely doesn't look like a guy you want to mess with. And this is, again, some more Panama action. Again, I don't know for sure whether the one on the left is a Panama, but I think it is. The one on the right definitely seems right. I think with the ribbon color, you tend to see a lot more of those bolder ribbon colors or patterns on some of the more, Panama hats, at least in my experience. But it still looks sharp, right? So the gentleman on the left has the all white suit with the black shirt. And it's interesting. He's got the black shirt, and it's the ribbon and the tie that are matching. And if I didn't see it, I wouldn't think that it would work, but it really does work. I'm going to go and guess this shot is from them looking in a mirror. I think it works really well. So having your tie and your hat ribbon match is a good idea.
Something. Yeah, well, yeah, that's quite a task to get that done. So well done to them.
Yeah, and like even on Capella, it's kind of a matching color scheme on the ribbon. He's kind of got like these spotted ribbon that's kind of like reddish. It kind of looks reddish, maybe or a little orange, and then with the red tie.
I guess these days you could buy two ties and use one for the hat ribbon. I mean,
yes,
it will be a little bit of a challenge depending on the thickness of the tie and the material, but it, at a stretch, it could be possible.
Yeah. And the gentleman, yeah, that's a great tip, by the way. I think I wouldn't be surprised if that's more common than I know of. I've not heard that, but it makes perfect sense as to, to be able to do that. And the gentleman here on the left, this kind of looks almost like either a double decker or a triple decker ribbon, right? But on the thin side, you can see some lines here in the ribbon. I did not notice that before, but from when I'm looking at it from this angle, I can see some lines on that ribbon. It almost seems like it's a double decker or a triple decker. So now that I've been exposed to the double decker ribbon, now it's like it's hard to unsee it sometimes. Now I'm seeing it places where I'm like, it probably doesn't exist. Let's see here. We got Jedi say, haha, patting his hat bra. Well, gentleman never tells. Everybody's got to have their secrets, Let's see here. I'll keep going here. Again, this is this one is Siffredi with his goons, right? And as well as Lola, you can see some of these goons throughout. And then I think they're at a racetrack. This kind of looks like the racetrack, and just a nice profile. Again, Siffredi just always is impeccably dressed throughout this whole film. Again, a masterclass in fashion.
Luke, I've just noticed the time, and I was on a bit of a clock today, so I'm going to leave you there for May. But I really enjoyed listening to your thoughts on the film and looking at the images. Thank you for putting it together.
No problem.
I'll catch up with you hopefully next week.
That sounds good, Paul. Paul, you have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Paul John Murphy, ladies and gentlemen. I always appreciate when folks in the network take out the time to kind of come join me on screen or in the chat room. And again, they sharing your time. I always appreciate it. So shout out to you, Paul, and to you, Nathan, for joining me, and all you guys in the chat. I appreciate it. We got Ian saying bye, Paul. I love it. Love it. And again, I'll almost done here with the photos. I don't have too many more photos because, again, if I show you all the photos of all the hats, that'd be like too much. But yeah, I'll show you here. This is one of the crime bosses, right? In the movie, we have two crime bosses. One's name is Polly or Poli. This is Poli. Poli has this very, very bright white hat with a black ribbon, right? Almost kind of looks Hamburgish. And it's more a fedora. It's definitely not a Hamburg, right? At least from what I can tell because of the raw edge, but it kind of has that Hamburg look to it. And, this is obviously a very big guy, you can see his face and you can see his neck. This is a ginormous man, right? Not somebody to mess with. But yeah, he eventually, again, remember, you guys will get spoilers throughout this, but, hopefully you guys forgive me for that. But I can't do this without spoilers. But Polly does meet his end in the movie. But yeah, he's definitely a boss, right? One of the big bosses, one of the two big bosses in Marseille, and essentially Siffredi and Capella end up taking out Polly first, and then ultimately Morello. More shots of Siffredi and Capella with his with their favorite goon, right? Again with the Tommy guns, just they cast a very badass image. I guess you can't really have a 1930s gangster film without the Tommy guns, right? It's got a part of the the authenticity. But the guy, the goon in the middle, man, wow, such a striking character. He actually reminds me of oh geez, what's his name? Andy Garcia. Kind of reminds me of Andy Garcia, right? Godfather Part 3. He has that kind of that look. I love it, and he has just, again, not a very tall guy, but strikes a very menacing pose when he's got the big high crown and the all black suit. So here's some more goons that are tasked with roughing up Capella. Again, you can see some of that fedora action. You got the center dent on the gray fedora on the left, and I don't know what kind of dent's on the right, but again, some very, very menacing characters. This is Sifredi with goons behind him. I think this is when he first comes to visit Lola, where she's staying in the beginning of the movie, and then he encounters Capella. And here's kind of a crew shot here, right? You got Sifredi here with the rest of his goons, all in hats, right? You got a couple fedoras and a couple flat caps. I thought it was a really cool shot. Yeah, Jedi says, I like the wide pant leg style too. Hate skinny pants. You know, I don't hate skinny pants, but I got to tell you, I really do. Like Delon especially does, maybe it's his frame, like his wider pant leg style really comes across immediately on screen in this movie. So it's there throughout, I believe. But in this particular movie, I think it's because of his slight stature, his slight frame, that the wider pant leg really comes through, and I think it looks really good. You know, I agree with you. I think it's a good look. All right, we're about coming up towards the end. This is kind of some of the bosses here. Right, you can see here a couple flat caps. You got what appears to be a Hamburg here on the on the character called Rinaldi. Now, Rinaldi is a lawyer who works for Poli and Morello, the big bosses, right? And you can see here, I think it's at least maybe 2 Hamburgs, right? And the gentleman in the back, his name is Dancer, right? He's wearing a boater, right? Dancer's got that long face, right? He's kind of an enforcer as well. And he's got the boater, right? The classic boater. I told you guys we had a nice array of headwear here in this movie. So you got the Hamburgs, you got the flat caps, and you got the boater all in one shot. I love it. And I believe this is kind of another shot, and this kind of looks like a Hamburg. It's hard to tell, but given the character, I think this probably would be a Hamburg. Yeah, it just looks really good. Kind of more of a long distance shot. All right, I think that's all for the photos. Man, yeah, again, hopefully that was enough photos to kind of give you a flavor of the tour de force that this movie is. Man, I highly recommend it. Now, if you don't have access to this movie on any streaming networks, you can actually find it for free on YouTube. That's how I saw it this morning on YouTube. Ian says Oxford bags are great trousers, but hard to source these days. Yeah. Again, I feel like, because of the advent of fast fashion, you start seeing a lot of things that aren't in vogue unless they become in vogue, right? They come back into fast fashion, and it's sad, right? You still got folks that are able to make custom-made clothing to your liking, but one, they're expensive, and they're a little bit harder to find, right? You have to kind of do a little bit more homework, and it becomes a little bit more of an investment. But yeah, it's such is the way of fashion these days. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Do I think this movie is a masterpiece? Yes, but not in a way because of its great filmmaking. I think it's a masterpiece because, one, if you're a hat person, it's a tour de force. One, it's called Borsalino, so it's hard not to like. And again, Alain Delon and as well as Jean-Paul Belmondo, those are like 2 iconic actors, not just for French actors, but just European and just international stars, especially Alain Delon. So if this was your first introduction into Alain Delon, well, this is a great movie to watch. And just FYI, this one came out in 1970. The sequel came out in 1974. Again, you don't get Belmondo in the sequel because Belmondo's character dies at the end of the first one, as Ian had pointed out. So yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This was one of those movies that when I got to this and I chose this, I was like, wow, how come I didn't do this sooner, right? This is one of those iconic hat movies that always gets mentioned, especially international movies, right? So all you guys that are on the Fedora Lounge, hopefully you love this one. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. It was my pleasure. And Jedi says, great show. Convinced me to put in an offer on the yellow hat. Congrats, Jedi. Do that. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Like I said, push comes to shove. It'll be a hat that you just wear on your most confident days. But who knows? Maybe it'll become your signature hat, right? You never know, right? Until you put it on your head. It's the most important part of wearing a hat, most important quality in a hat is how it makes you feel when you put it on. So yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you to Paul. Thank you to Nathan for joining me on screen. Thanks to Jedi, to Ian, and all the other folks that joined me in the chat room. This has been Fedora Friday number 24. And you know what I'm going to say, right? Please support Paul. Please support Robert. Please support Josh. Please support Brad and all the other folks on the Good Looks Network. But even if you don't, right? Even if you choose not to support, you know, the one thing you got to do, or else we'll get Safredi after you. Remember, if Safredi's alive and well, you don't want him after you, right? He'll concoct some kind of plan, right? And he won't do anything to you. He might just to convince you to go whoop and hit that subscribe button. But either way, the non-negotiable is that you have to stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody.